Thanks everybody for joining me today. I'm really excited to share this with you. It's one of those things where, the circumstances under which you're gaining access to this from home are not so great, but, we'll make the most of it since, a lot of us are in need of funding at this moment. So yeah, I'm Kent Mulcahy. I'm the Grants Resource Librarian at the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. Towards the end of the presentation, kind of in the wrap up, I'm going to go into more of what we do at the library specifically, what I do, what I can help you with, some of the things that I can't really help you with, and just a general wrap up of resources. So I'll close with that because I know some people, it sounds like, aren't going to be able to stay for the whole thing, which is understandable. So I want to make sure we get right to the database. I think that's the most important thing that we can cover today. But in the handouts that were made available to you online in the email that went out about this presentation, so you'll see links to those handouts. One of them, the user's guide on how to use the database, will have all of my contact info in it. So there are many ways to get in contact with me. You'll find that there. So I think we're going to start with what is the Foundation Directory online database. And whenever I go over an introductory course on the database itself, I also think it's important not only to go over what it is, but where it comes from and who runs it. So with that, I would like to introduce you guys to Grantspace.org. And Grantspace is a website run by the same people that run the database. The company is called Candid, or not a company, it's a nonprofit. Candid is they're a nonprofit themselves, but their philanthropic mission is not to go out and pound the pavement and, get appropriate winter clothes for families in need in cold weather. They're an educational nonprofit. So what they do is they provide information to nonprofits like you via the database or the classes that I teach at the library. And so anytime you see Candid or Grantspace, you're in a safe space for nonprofits. And another reason I really wanted to point out this Grantspace site first is because, yes, you get access to the database at the Cincinnati Public Library, but there are a lot of public libraries around the country. We're known as Funding Information Network Partners. And on Grantspace, there's a place for you to find the nearest funding information partner near you. So I'm on the grantspace.org. If I scroll down, I'm going to see Find Candid Near Me. And I can type in my zip code and find the nearest location to me where at the least I get free access to the database. So say, eventually when we're allowed to go on vacations again, you're on the beach and you're saying, man, this vacation's fun, but I'd really like to take a break and do some grant research. You could type in where you are and find the nearest place where you can get free access to the database. And this website is so much more than just that. It's called Grantspace, but it's really everything that a nonprofit could possibly need help with. I would recommend anyone and everyone bookmarking this website on the computer where they do their work. All right, so all of that. Now let's talk about the Foundation Directory itself. So this is what you'll see when you are using the Foundation Directory online. Oops. And I'm trying to move something around here so I can see a little better on my screen. So under normal circumstances, the catch is you have to be at the downtown public library to use it. And I want you guys to take note of that because, once things kind of go back to normal and we're allowed to go back out into public and the library is open again, you will have to come to the downtown main branch to use it. And it's like that in any library. For example, in Kenton County Library, you have to go to only the Erlanger branch to use it. In Claremont County, I believe it's the Miami Township branch where you need to use it. So right now, though, they're making the Foundation Directory Online Essential version, tier level of it, free for you guys to use from home. And the link to that is going to be on the Grants Resource Center webpage. And I'll go over the Grants Resource Center webpage at the end so you'll know exactly where to get access to this essential version. But if you have trouble finding it, you guys will all have my email address. Please send me emails if any of your questions at all, and I will help you get access to the database. Now, at the library, when you come to use it in person, you get access to the Foundation Directory Online Professional version. And so, yeah, there are some things in the professional version that are not available to you with the essential version, and I will make sure to cover those things as I go through the presentation and really show you the different parts of the database. I'll make sure to show you the things that where if there's some bits of information you're needing, you can email me and I will send them to you. And that'll, again, make more sense as I go through the presentation. So what is the Foundation Directory Online? The Foundation Directory Online is a funder research tool. And I need to make a very important distinction there. This is not where you go to apply for grants. You will never see a link on this database that says apply now. And as a matter of fact, that's generally not how it works with foundation granting anyway. You know, like private foundations, family foundations, corporate foundations. The preferred method is that you research funders, find the perfect pile of funders who have funded your cause and have interest in your cause. You reach out to them, open up a conversation, a dialogue, and you open what's really better described as a partnership. And at some point, they say, hey, yeah, this looks good. You should send an application to us. And I would say the other reason that you use it is so you never have to look at a foundation's tax document ever again. So just like nonprofits you guys have to file 990 forms, private foundations have to file 990 PF, PF as in private foundation forms. And this database takes those incredibly dense tax forms, hundreds and hundreds of pages, extracts only the information you need to know, and actually a lot more information than what is found on a tax form, and puts it all into one easy to understand condensed version. So it makes your funder research time much, much, much more efficient. And so now that we know kind of what it is and what you use it for funder research, let's talk about what the foundation, really quickly, let's talk about what the Foundation Directory Online is not. The Foundation Directory Online is not your place to go for government funding. Now, in the professional version of the database, the one at the library, you will actually find government funding listed. In the essential version, you will not, but that's okay, because really the best place to go for government funding is typically grants.gov. So again, this is not really your place to go for government funding. So you're using it to research private foundations, and you're just doing funder research. You are not going to be doing applying for your grants through this. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and let's just start doing a search on the database. So on the home screen, I see right here a search box, and this is their version of a basic search. It's actually quite close to a Google search. You can type conversationally. And so, and by the way, for my examples in this class, I always do an example as if I were a dog rescue nonprofit, and hopefully I have a very specific reason why I do that. So I can type in conversationally, and when I am forming a search in this database, I need to think of 3 things, and I need to think of these 3 things in this order of importance. 1, what do I do? 2, where do I do it? 3, who do I do it for? So those 3 things will basically help you construct a really good search. So what you do, where you do it, who you do it for, in that order of importance. And you'll hear me say that quite a few more times throughout this presentation. So here I go. I'm going to do a search. I'm going to type in animal shelter in Cincinnati, Ohio. So there I am. I have, what do I do? I'm an animal shelter. Where do I do it? Cincinnati, Ohio. Now, for this hypothetical example, I'm not going to worry about who I do it for. The database doesn't get as specific as dog breeds. I would like it if it did, but it does not. So for me, this is a good search. What do I do? Animal shelter. Where do I do it? Cincinnati, Ohio. So I am going to hit search. And I have my results. But guess what? I'm not going to go over the results right now, because while the basic search is good, it's a really good search, I'm really going to kind of try to, I guess, peer pressure you guys into using the advanced search. when you use the database. And when I do these classes in person, when I say, hey, I'm going to make you do the advanced search, sometimes I get some looks and some comments of like, well, you're a reference librarian. Of course you want us to do an advanced search. That's what you do in your free time. And fine, that's true. It is what I do in my free time. I do think it's fun. But as you'll see in a second, when I show you their advanced search, I think their version of it should have air quotes around advanced. It is a very intuitive, very easy to use advanced search. And I promise you, you get better results. And the handout that has been made available to you, the homemade handout that I've created, it really walks you through step by step on how to do a really good advanced search. So with that, let's redo my search for my dog shelter, but this time I'm going to do an advanced search instead of the basic search. So when I'm using the database, anytime that I want to start all over again, I'll scroll to the top and I can either click Find Funding or I can click Foundation Directory Online. Either one of these is going to start me right back over. So here I am, I'm back to the beginning, and I see Advanced Search and Filters. So I'm going to click that now. Here we go, Advanced Search, 6 options. Okay, that's it, 6 options. So how difficult can this be? And yes, I know, I see additional filters right here. Yeah, there are definitely way more search filters that you can apply. This is a very powerful database. But again, this is a very basic introduction to this database. What I really want to give you today is just the basics of what you need to hit the ground running and get hooked up with some good funders. If anyone, as you're using the database, digs in and finds the additional filters and you have questions about them, by all means, feel free to email me. But we are going to stay up here today. So 6 things, and one of my favorite things about the way they've laid this out is not only have they limited it to 6, they put them in order of importance. So top to bottom, left to right. Most important is subject area, geographic focus, population served. And let's go back to for a second. What were the things that I said were needed for a good search? Most important, what do I do? What needs funding? Second most important, where do I do it? Geographic focus. Third most important, who do I do it for? Population served. So we're going to come back and really dig through these, and that's where we're going to go now. So let's look through them. So subject area is what I do to describe myself. What is my philanthropic mission? Of course, that's going to be the most important thing for the search. Second, I see geographic focus. Where will the funding be used? Where am I executing my mission? I want to go out of order for a second. So I see 1, subject area, 2, geographic focus, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so they're saying geographic focus is 2nd most important, location is 5th most important. On the surface, those seem a little bit similar. They are not. And geographic focus is so much more important than location. If I do a search with just location, so I did animal shelter and Cincinnati, I am only going to get funders whose headquarters are in Cincinnati, Ohio. They will probably be good matches. If a headquarters is in Cincinnati, they're probably going to fund the Cincinnati area, and that's great. But here's what I'll miss that way. I will miss that funder whose headquarters is in Texas, but maybe she grew up in Cincinnati, so she gives to 2 places. She gives to Texas, and she gives to Cincinnati, where she grew up. So where the money is spent is way more important than the headquarters of either the nonprofit or the funder themselves. So I always recommend using geographic focus. And I'll show you a little more location searches once we start doing the hypothetical search, but just remember, for the most part, try geographic focus. Population served, very important. This is who will be affected. And I think one of the better examples of this is, what if for my subject area, I had mental health, geographic focus, wherever, Northern Kentucky, population served, veterans. Well, that way, my mental health mission is really for maybe PTSD. So not everyone will use population served. I want to stress that. Remember, this is most important, this is 2nd most important, this is 3rd most important. A lot of you will not end up using population served. So my point is, if it doesn't fit, don't force it. So again, for my animal shelter, I'm not going to use population served. Organization name, if I knew the exact organization that I wanted to look up, like I wanted to look up the Durer Foundation, I could just jump straight to them there by typing in the organization name. Covered location, the who's who, I'm going to skip that one. Yeah, they put it as the sixth most important. Personally, I've never really ended up using the who's who function. So especially for the sake of time, I'm going to skip that for now. I'm not going to worry about that. So with all that, now let's start constructing an advanced search for my animal shelter. And when I start showing you the subject area, I think this is where, or at least I hope it's where it really hits home to you why the advanced search is better. So in talking about the basic search, when I'm typing off the top of my head in the basic search, I'm hoping that the words I use to describe my nonprofit or my project's mission, I'm hoping the words I use match the words that the database itself uses to describe that term. And the database is really, really good at matching up different terms and getting you the right funding. But again, you're just kind of at the mercy of the database. The advanced search does not let you type off the top of your head in any of these fields. And that seems restrictive at first, but it's not. And let me show you why. So when I just type in subject area, I don't even have to type anything. I see a hierarchy that comes up of predetermined terms. And as I look through them, I'm noticing these little drop-down arrows. So health, well, that could mean so many different things, right? Well, I'm start clicking the drop-down arrow, and I'm going to start digging in to find much more specific terms. So I could get as specific as Alzheimer's. And it works like you would expect a hierarchy to work. If I click brain and nervous system disorders, it catches everything below it, but not above it. And I get a lot of questions at this point of, well, what should I do? Should I start small and go big? Should I start big and drill my way down? I don't know if there's a right answer to that. Personally, I always start pretty granular, knowing that I probably won't get a ton of results, and then I work my way up. So for example, I would start with Alzheimer's, I hit search, I get nothing. Okay, that's fine. Let's just back it up to brain and nervous system disorders because Alzheimer's falls under that term. And I just kind of work my way up until I find a good amount of funders to look through. And another thing to really stress when you're trying to find a good search term for what you do, please don't obsess over finding the absolute perfect term for your project. More than likely, it's not going to be there. We as nonprofits, as we're executing a project, planning it, trying to fund it, we live, eat, sleep, and breathe it. So, someone asks us, oh, what's your project? We could talk their ear off for 30 minutes describing the fine points of what the project is. A funder at this stage in the game probably doesn't want to know all those. So I may get really excited when I see something as specific as, oh, reforestation, that sounds great to me. That doesn't mean that a funder themselves has thought as in depth about it and said, oh, reforestation, that's how I want to tag myself on here. They may have just gone to forest preservation and they didn't go any more specific. So again, my strategy, I would have started with reforestation. I may not have gotten many hits or many results that way. That's fine. I'm going to back up the hierarchy and just keep going until I find a good amount of funders, of potential funders. So that is the subject area. And before I actually go through and do my search, I want to point out two things for you. There was a link to another handout, and it is all the subject terms and population terms in the database. That should be another one of the handouts that were provided. And also take note of this website, taxonomy.candid.org. This is a freely available website that lets you dig in and look through the terms themselves. Like we were just looking at environment, correct? And I saw biodiversity, and I saw forest preservation. And when I use this free website, I can look and see the full definition of the term. So I know exactly, I can make sure that my definition of reforestation matches the database's definition of reforestation. And the other thing I want to really recommend to you guys, right now you have access to this database from home, and that's great. When things go back to normal, you'll have to go to a library to use it. Let me share a tip with you. The people who have the most success with the database, who come back to me and say, that they were the happiest with using it, they spend time on taxonomy.candid.org before coming to a library. And that way, they already have written down a list of subject terms that they want to do searches for. That way, when they're at the library, they're not doing things that could be done at home. They are only using the database for things that can only be accessed at the library. So I can't stress that enough. It's such a good strategy for you to do the searching for your terms before coming to a library. All right, so let's go back to the database. I'm going to start looking for my dog shelter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll through this hierarchy very slowly. And in my classes, what I do is I say, hey, someone raise their hand when they see one that just screams dog shelter. You know, I can't see you guys do that, so I'm going to kind of play the role of the participant in this scenario. So I'm going to scroll through, let's see, arts and culture, education, no, environment, no, information, philanthropy. Okay, I'm not seeing anything that just screams dog shelter, but I mean, there has to be animal shelter rescues, right? Or funding for that. So well, in my basic search, I tried animal shelter. So let's just start typing animal. Ah, there we go. And this is why the advanced search is so great. I type animal, the term off the top of my head, and the database returns any subject, official subject heading where animal comes up. And I see domesticated animals. Well, that's great. That definitely describes what I'm doing. Dogs, domesticated animals. So, you know, if someone said, hey, what's your nonprofit's mission? I would have never said, oh, I run a domesticated animal shelter, right? I would have never used that term. But it does bring up something that maybe I wouldn't have thought of. There are domesticated animal shelters, and then there are livestock animal nonprofits, you know, ethics and how they're treated on farms. So it's good to know the difference between those two. I may not have arrived at that on my own, but by using advanced search, I see that domesticated animals is the perfect search for me. And that is why the advanced search is so great, because it helps me find better terms or ones that match the database better. So another thing about subject area, it is so tempting to look through the available subject heading terms and just fill this box with a million different subject terms. I can't stress enough, please do not do that. I don't want to really go into all the reasons why in today's class, but the database does not do as well with multiple subject area terms. I really strongly recommend you really try to find just one and do your search with only one subject area term, maybe two, but as best you can, really try to stick to one subject area term. Trust me, you'll be happier. Then I'm going to move on and I'm going to do geographic region. Now, you know, I got the nice drop-down menu in subject area. I don't get that for geographic focus. That makes sense. Would I want a drop-down menu of literally every place in the world? No, but it does do predictive text. So I could start typing Hamilton County. It kind of knows where I am. So I would click that and populate that in the box. Now, for geographic focus, you can use multiple terms, and that's very helpful, especially where we are situated, because think about it. A lot of funders, if they fund Hamilton County, where else will they fund? A lot of them will cross the river and fund Northern Kentucky. So I can definitely stack terms in the geographic focus. That's perfectly fine. I could also just do United States. So there I go. I'm looking for national funders now. Just to jump down to location for half a second, I know I told you earlier, try not to use this one. There is one location that might help you actually. If I start typing Cincinnati, I see the tri-state region. That is actually a pretty good search if you wanted to try that one. But the catch is, do not use geographic focus and location together. Use one or the other. And you know, while I'm thinking about it, a good reason to use the location actually is, let's say you wanted to line up meetings, like face-to-face, in-person meetings with potential funders. If I did a headquarters location of Cincinnati, I would only get funders who are close enough that I could make a trip and go see. That's one reason to use the location that I do recommend. But again, for the most part, you're going to do geographic focus. And I am going to stick with Hamilton County for my example. Population served, does give you a really nice drop-down menu, just like the subject area. And I could dig in. I see social and economic status, at-risk youth, dropouts, immigrants and migrants. I see victims and oppressed people, incarcerated people. And so, you know, I could definitely find a very specific, maybe I want to be clear that maybe I'm an educational nonprofit, but I work with adults. I could specify it in there. I could specify by gender, and many different populations are available to you. This is another thing where really try to use one term at a time. Do not stack terms in population served. So for me though, remember, this is fine. This is what I'm gonna go with. This is gonna be my search. Subject area, what do I do? Geographic focus, where do I do it? And I am gonna hit search. Here I go. Here's my results. Now I do wanna, this is where I'm gonna start pointing out the differences between the essential version that you guys have access to right now versus the professional version that are available to you at libraries. You're going to spend the bulk of your time here at grant makers. You could also think of grant makers. Another word for that is potential funders or the foundations. I'm going to come back to that. That's where we're going to spend most of our time today. In the professional version, saying upgrade now, right? In the professional version, this box would be highlighted orange and it would be actual grants. So you could look at related to domesticated animals in Hamilton County, given to nonprofits who serve Hamilton County. I could see who gave the grant, who got the grant, how much the grant was for, when it was given, and in some cases, there's a description field that which very specifically talks about what that grant was awarded for. This is not available to you on the essential, so let's say a lot of people will look at profiles of funders and they really want to know who they've given grants to in the past. If you want that information, by all means, email me. Tell me the search terms you used. So tell me what your subject area was. Tell me what your geographic focus was. And if you use a population group, tell me what your population was and the name of the foundation you're interested in. And I will download and send you a spreadsheet of the grants they've awarded. Right now, the grants in the database go back to 2003. But I mean, think about it. Do you really need them to go back further than that? Are you interested in a grant that was awarded in 1975? Probably doesn't have much bearing on 2020. In the professional version, this recipients box will be highlighted in teal, and recipients are other nonprofits similar to what you do. And there's a lot of good ways to use that. Private foundations, funders, love seeing multiple nonprofits go in on a project or a grant together. So this is a good way to find other nonprofits to work with. The other way to use the recipients is to look up nonprofits similar to you. And you'll find some that are really, really good at getting grants, it seems like. You could look up and see who is funding them, and you could, I don't want to use the word steal, but maybe you could get in on some of that money. You could do some reconnaissance, we'll call it that, because if a funder has a history of funding an organization similar to yours, they might be interested in knowing about you. So it's another way to find potential funders. Over here, this is available to you with Essential. Highlighted in green are the 990 tax forms of the funders. That's great. It's good that it's available to you, but you do not need this database to look at 990 forms. 990 forms legally have to be publicly available. So for example, you could go to guidestar.org. You could look up 990s that way, or the people that run this database, they have their own 990 finder. And if you just Google literally the phrase 990 finder, you'll pull that up. So again, it's cool that they're available, but you don't need to use this database to get access to them. And more importantly, the database exists, so hopefully you don't have to look at the tax forms. Just keep that in mind. So with that, we are going to go ahead and dig into the grant makers or potential funders. So I see it says there are 124 funders that matched my search of domesticated animals, Hamilton County. Obviously, there's not 124, so I'm going to click View All. And now I see my list of the first 100. So let's pick apart this list that I see first. So what I see, oh, and by the way, again, we're gonna ignore that Amazon Smile Foundation is at the top there. We're gonna ignore that for the purpose of today's class. That's a different case. But what I see on the initial results screen, I see the grant maker, city, state, country, total assets, total giving amount funded, and grant count. So total assets and total giving. Personally, I don't look at this at all, usually. It's easy to get dollar signs in your eyes by looking at the total assets and total giving of a foundation. That has nothing to do, these numbers have nothing to do with my type of nonprofit. This is just an overall picture of that funder. I guess it could be helpful if you just wanted to know at a glance, are they a small foundation or are they a large foundation? Sure, that might be helpful, but I don't really look at this that much. Amount funded is where it gets interesting. Amount funded is how much they have funded my cause, domesticated animals, Hamilton County. So this is where you really start looking. So that's interesting because another thing to note is the database returns funders to you in a suggested order of maybe you should look at these people first. Okay, let's extrapolate that a little bit. I see that the GE Foundation has given almost $65,000 to domesticated animal shelters. Okay, good. I see that the Schiff Foundation has given over $11 million to my cause. So why would the database rank the GE Foundation above Schiff? The reason is the grant count field. The database does not recommend them in the order of who will give you the most money. It recommends the funders is who will most likely give you some money. And the reason for that is basically the suggested way that you go about grant seeking or applying to funders. What funders do not want to see, they ask, okay, so you're talking to a funder and they say, okay, how else are you trying to fund your project? And you say, well, we're applying to you and just you for the full amount of our project. We're not doing any fundraising. We're just hoping you say yes, and we're hoping that you give us the full amount. That is a good way to not get funding. Because what a funder will then think at that point is, well, I'd like to give you some money, but I can't give you all the money you're asking for. So what's the point of giving you any money if it's not going to help you get your project done? So what funders want to see is that you are applying to multiple foundations and also piecemealing your budget together with good old-fashioned fundraising. Because let's say you send out 5 proposals, you're most likely not going to get a yes on all of them. So you want to send out multiple proposals so a funder knows that you're diversifying your potential streams of income. So that is how they rank them. They rank them in who are you likely to get some money from. Now, the real bulk of your time when you're using this is going to come from clicking on any funder that you're interested in learning more about and looking through their full funder profiles. For the purpose of my demonstrations, I always pick the Greater Cincinnati Foundation, and it's not for any reason other than the fact that they're an example of a particularly robust profile. And it just gives me a better example of what you might see in a profile. So I'm going to click on Greater Cincinnati Foundation. And let's start digging into what I see. And actually what I want to point off right off the bat, because I think this is a pretty cool reason to use the database. Let's pretend you could only look at 990s. You're kind of at the mercy of when those tax forms become available, right? We'll look at this. On this database, the profile of the Greater Cincinnati Foundation was last updated in September of 2019. The grant information was literally updated days ago. So you are getting very, very up-to-date information when you use the database. So you see some contact info right at the beginning. Good stuff to know, obviously. But again, this is probably things you're going to see, you could find their website pretty easily. Here's where it starts getting interesting. I'm seeing charts and graphs. Okay, nice. So what is being funded? This lets me know where the priorities of a given funder lie at the moment. So I see right at the beginning, arts and culture, that's where they seem to be funding right now. I moved quickly when I was finding my search term of domesticated animals. What you probably didn't notice was it was nested under the top level hierarchy term of environment. Now, that means environment. Whoa, I'm at the bottom of their list. Okay, when I look at that, personally, I don't see that as me saying, well, I should not apply to them at all. I shouldn't look any further. They're still funding my cause, but I need to be realistic about how much to ask for. I'm not going to ask for $1 billion gazillion from them. And, I also have to take into account that at a particular time, if they're getting an overwhelming amount of requests from arts and culture or human services, most nonprofits, maybe my chances go down a little bit, but I don't look at that and think I should not apply. The map is where's the money going is helpful for national funders. It may not be as necessary for a local funder. So, and the reason for national funders, especially, a lot of times people call themselves national funders, but when you look at the map, they really give to California and New York. So in national funders cases, it's good to see where's the money really going. For somewhere like the Greater Cincinnati Foundation, no surprise, right? Ohio is the darkest. Over here, I see how big are the grants, and this tells me what's their typical grant amount. So looking at this, 10 to 25,000 is their typical amount. So I'm gonna move on from this and scroll down a bit. Now, I do need to break out and tell you about a feature you're not getting with the essential version. Normally, when you scroll down, the next thing you see, highlighted in orange, is a section of the grants that the Greater Cincinnati Foundation, in this case, have given to my cause. And the really helpful part of that is it tells you what the average amount is for my cause. And that's an important distinction because this is just the overall average amount. Now, in the full example of the profile, I see 10 to 25,000. Here, it would say that the typical amount they give to domesticated animal shelters is $5,000. So that's important to know. It's more important to know what they give to your cause than just their overall, like across the board, what's their typical grant amount. And this is the thing where when you are using the essential version, if you are interested in knowing what a funder gives to your specific cause, email me. I will get that info for you, download it, and I will email it to you. So don't hesitate to ask me for that. I'm going to move on past funding interests for now. This wouldn't have come back as a result if my cause wasn't somewhere in the funding interests. The about section, such an important section. So as I mentioned kind of briefly before, a really good way to go about foundation funding is to reach out to them before you apply and talk to them. Try to have a conversation, be it email, be it a phone call. And you use this information. For you, you make sure that they're a good match for you, their purposes and activities. Does that match your philanthropic mission? Does one of their program areas match what you're doing? So it's a good place for you to go to find out if it's a good match. But importantly, this can inform the first conversation that you have with a funder. You know, we all like to think, there's that saying, there's no such thing as a dumb question, right? And as a librarian, it's my job to, push that. But there's definitely questions you should not ask a funder. One of the questions you should not ask a funder is ring, 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 hello, hi, do you fund my cause? It's a bad start. And the reason for that is that that information is out there. And what that tells the funder is that you likely didn't look at anything other than their bank account. You didn't look and see what they like to fund. You didn't look at their mission statement. You just saw they have a lot of money and you wanted to apply to them. So that can kind of get you off to a bad start. So this way, when you call them, you can say, hi, I'm with the blah, blah, blah nonprofit. This is what we do. We are contacting you because, and then you use this information to impress them with how you're a proactive nonprofit who really learns about a foundation before you contact them. And you can kind of throw out tidbits of information about them to impress them with your research skills. It can also inform your conversation. Cultural vibrancy. Well, we are a nonprofit that also likes to enhance cultural vibrancy in the greater Cincinnati region. You're not going to be that robotic about it, of course, but it does help inform your call and really impress upon them your proactive nature. So this is very important to know. And, this is the type of thing, probably for the Greater Cincinnati Foundation, a big foundation like this is going to be somewhere on their website. But for all of this, how much would you have to click around to find all of this condensed into one area on their website? So while not everything on the database is exclusive to the database, it extracts it and puts it in a condensed nature to make better use of your time. So I'm going to keep moving. Other funders to consider. Based on what you searched for and the funder you are currently looking at, it automatically picks 6 funders that there's enough of a correlation, they're at least worth looking into. It does not mean they're going to be a match or that you can even apply. So you still need to comb through them line by line, but there's enough relationship that you should look. And then moving on. Applications. So, we all probably want to know about the application process, right? So this is, again, a very important section. And before I really get into the application part, you'll see it says RFPs. If the foundation you're looking at has an RFP out at the moment matching your cause, it will show up here. And that's great, but I always like to throw this out there. When you talk to the best grant seekers or major funders, every year of total philanthropic giving, only 3% of the grants awarded come from requests for proposals. So what that should mean to you is that while signing up for a newsletter or something that lets you know when a request for a proposal is out there that matches what you're doing, that's great. But if that's all you do to look for foundation funding, you're missing out on about 97% of what's usually given. Again, most of foundation giving comes from you reaching out to a funder, talking to them, trying to build a relationship. Just wanted to mention that. So here I see visit foundation website for online application and guidelines per grant type. So visit website. There's more information that's going to be there. But the bottom line, what that tells me is that they are accepting applications. Frustratingly, what you are going to see oftentimes in these profiles, especially for the really big foundations, is it'll say something along the lines of practices an outreach only form of giving, or does not accept unsolicited proposals. And what they're basically saying is, don't call us, we'll call you. So yeah, you cannot apply to them. You can't contact them and say, can I apply? But you can send them a letter of introduction that is simply what you do and where you do it. Keep it to one page, but it's just a chance for you to get on their radar. Then I look down and I see what goes into a proposal. Now, proposals are very in-depth. So do you think these 10 short statements really tell you everything that goes into a proposal? No, but it's a snapshot to give yourself an idea of what you're getting into. So I could look at these and say, whoa, 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 that's way more than I'm capable of doing. I don't think I could make a good proposal for this. Or you could look at it and say, yeah, that's doable for me. So it just gives you an idea of what you're about to get yourself into. And just remember, these 10 things are not optional. They're never optional. If they want 10 things, don't send them 9.7 things, don't send them 10.2 things. So a lot of grant writing and grant seeking is etiquette. And here you'll see the initial approach, and it says visit the website or telephone. Side note, in roundtable discussions with funders, they say that when a phone call goes well, it ups your chances of getting a grant by about 30%. Of course, we wish it were more than 30%, but we'll take any advantage we can get, right? So when they will take a call, make that call. Have a script ready, bullet points, don't waste their time. This is not the time for you to get on the phone with them and be like, yeah, Cincinnati weather, am I right? Cut right to the point. They're busy, and so are you. I'm going to move on to giving limitations. This is an incredibly important section of this database and these profiles. Personally, when I'm doing a project for the library, the first place I jump to is the giving limitations. Because while a funder may fund my cause, they may not fund the project I'm trying to fund. And a common thing you'll see is giving limitations. No grants for building renovation or building acquisitions. So a lot of funders won't fund you buying a new headquarters. A lot of them don't like to fund general overhead costs. So you need to really comb over this area very carefully to make sure that your project does not knock you out of contention. I'm going to skip financials because, again, these numbers have nothing to do with my cause, and you can get the tax forms anywhere. The who's who list, maybe you have a contact that you didn't know you had. So you want to go through these because there is nothing more important than having a contact within a foundation. So really comb through this, and maybe you have someone that could make the introduction for you. And another thing to know, the professional version of this database, where applicable, will have active LinkedIn links to the people in the who's who list. So maybe you can 6 degrees of separation your way into having a contact you did not know you had. I'm going to skip communications for today. There's a newsletter you can sign up for, the Philanthropy News Digest, and it's just a way for you to keep tabs on what a given foundation is up to. All of their social media condensed into one place, so you can internet stalk them a little bit. Obviously you don't interact with a foundation. You don't try to friend them or whatever and show them pictures of what you had for lunch. This is just for you to look at, maybe they held an event and you see a picture of someone who works for the foundation and you're like, oh, I didn't know she worked for them. Now you have a contact you didn't know you had. Skip this section for now. We'll go right to the beginning. We've got more contact info at the bottom. All right, so this is an example of a full profile. I hope you see that it makes a lot of things you need to know condensed into a very, very, very small area. And just to make a point, I want to show you the 990 from 2017 for the Greater Cincinnati Foundation. Let's see. How many pages do we have here? 601 pages. So somewhere within these 601 pages, there is some of the information we looked at, but not all of it. So do you want to look through 601 pages, or do you want to look through what we just looked at? Personally, I would rather look through this. So that's great. A condensed profile that puts everything I need to know in one place. Well, okay, normally you can only use it at the library. So what do? Write all this information down on paper that I bring? You do not have to do that. It makes it very, very easy to share this with you and any stakeholder you think needs to see it. I could click PDF and generate a PDF of everything I just saw, and then I could maybe upload it to my cloud drive and share it with everyone who needs to see it. I can also click the mail icon and I could email a PDF of everything we just saw. I could email it to myself and any number of people. So the better way to share it is you send a profile out to everyone in your office who needs to see it. You say, hey, I just sent you or uploaded the Greater Cincinnati Foundation's profile. I want everyone to take a look at it, look at the who's who list, tell me if you know somebody, and if you do, you are going to be our contact when we reach out to the Greater Cincinnati Foundation. So it's a very helpful way to share it. And just so you know, I'm going to share with you the profile. So here is a PDF version. This is what you'll get if you email it to yourself or download a PDF and add it to your cloud drive. And one thing to point out very quickly, because this comes up, I don't know if anyone noticed, again, moving kind of quickly, to see the full background and the full program areas, I had to click a drop-down menu, otherwise it wasn't visible. When you create a PDF and send it to yourself, anything that can be expanded within a profile is automatically expanded, so you will not miss anything. So do keep that in mind. All right, so we're gonna go back to the database because there's another really good way to share the database's information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my GrantMaker results screen. There's always a breadcrumb trail here to just back up where I went through. And now I see my list of 124 grant makers, and really it just pulls up 100 at a time. Let's say I'm not going to be able to use the library for a while, so I know I'm not going to get access to the full profiles, or I just want a very quick list of the potential funders. The database makes it easy for you to create spreadsheets of this information. And so pay attention as I show you how to do this, because this is sometimes the one thing that throws people in my classes. That said, the step-by-step process is in your handouts. So what I can do is I can go through and I could select up to 100 at a time of the funders I'm particularly interested in, or along the very top row, I could click this one and it catches all 100. Okay, great. So up here, I see the tools option, the sharing options. I see PDF, the grid, and letter. For the full profile I just showed you of the Greater Cincinnati Foundation, I recommended either the PDF or the emailing icon. Don't use that if you want a spreadsheet. If I use the PDF option or the mail, I literally get a snapshot of what I'm seeing right here, and that's great. But as you'll see, when I use this grid in the middle to create a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, I get all this information and I get more. So what I would do is I would click this and it would generate a spreadsheet. Sometimes that takes a while. So I've already created one and downloaded it here, and I'll show you what I get. So I do get the grant maker name, and over here, I'm gonna see total assets, total giving, amount funded, which is what I saw before. But look at all the other stuff I get that was not on just the database screen itself. I get contact info where applicable. I get emails, addresses, faxes, telephone numbers. So the spreadsheets give you more information. And the other thing about spreadsheets is that, you send yourself a PDF, that's what you get. You can't change it. If you send yourself an Excel spreadsheet, this is customizable. I'm big on highlighting things like green, yellow, red, yes, no, maybes. You could link spreadsheets together. So personally, using a spreadsheet is way more effective than just generating a PDF. So I'm going to go back to the database. Okay. So this is a very, very quick and dirty explanation of the essential database tier that you get access to right now. So what I'm going to do is I have a couple of other things I want to show you about using the database, about what I can do for you. And then with time left, and I'm sure there will be some time left after this, that I'll take questions from you guys. So the first thing I want to point out is, notice in the database, I see this chat icon. During the Foundation Center's or Candid's business hours, and I always forget, I think it's 9 to 4:30, Mondays through Fridays, you can live chat with them, with a professional, and they can help you. So you could say, hey, this is what I do as a nonprofit. What do you recommend I search? And a professional would absolutely help you with that. I always forget to point that out. I think that is a wonderful thing that the database provides. The other thing I want to show you is, surprise, I'm going to push the library on you. So for people that haven't been to the site before, it's cincinnatilibrary.org, cincinnatilibrary.org. Under the Services tab, so this is the home screen, under Services, I'm going to see Grants Resource Center. So I'm going to click on that. Now notice for now, right at the top here, there's a thing mentioning the COVID-19 situation. Here is your link right here to use the database. This will give you access to everything we just looked at in the presentation. This next link down here is a link to email me directly. So the other things I have on this page, programs for nonprofits. Normally, I do 3 classes each month, at least 3 classes each month. Introduction to Finding Grants is just a high level overview of the typical grant seeking world. Grants Research Lab is what we did today, but we go over the professional version in that. Just to throw it out there, on Tuesday, April 14th, I'm going to be doing my normal Grants Research Lab class virtually through a Microsoft Teams live event. I will be going over the full professional version in that. There will be a couple of things that are different. If anyone is interested and you want to see me go over the full professional version of it, email me, and once that goes live, I will send you a link to access that event. Just let me know. For the most part, you're going to see what you saw today. It's always good to have a refresher, but there will be a couple of things that will be exclusive to the Grants Research Lab. And then I also do Introduction to Proposal Writing, which is just a very basic level overview of what goes into a typical proposal. We also have available the Foundation Grants to Individuals online database. This is specific to things like maybe you're an artist who wants to fund an art installation. That's one thing you may use this for. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, yes, I help grants and nonprofits find funding. I also help with undergraduate scholarships. So we have an amazing database for helping you find undergraduate scholarship opportunities. So if anyone is interested in that, email me. I have some great stuff to share with you. Right now, you can't check books out or request books, but once we're back open again, there's a reading recommendations list by topic for nonprofits, and you can place holds on these books and look at what we have. Down here, you'll see how to contact me. Again, I've shared a million ways for you to contact me. You'll see my phone number right now. That's not going to get me. But I also kind of I don't want to say don't recommend calling. You can always call me when I'm in the office. But know that I don't have my own phone. They do not trust librarians with phones, apparently. So this just goes to the general office that I work in. And, it ends up being phone tag oftentimes because I tend to leave the library and do remote presentations at places around the community. So I'm out of the office a decent amount. So with that in mind, I kind of prefer you to email me. And the reason for that is I'm kind of OCD about getting back to people quickly on email. So if you email me a question, even if my response is, I got your response, I'm out, I'm off site today, I'll be back in the office on Tuesday, I'll get back to you then. I get back to you quicker on email. But the main reason is I think I answer your questions better via email. So instead of me just going on and on and on about your question, I could send you links, I could send you attachments, and just cut right to the point of what your question was. So for that reason only, I kind of prefer email. And as far as our physical grants resource center in the library, and this is an important thing to note too, to use the database itself and to get where we keep all of our grants, books, nonprofits, books, resources like that, you come to the downtown library. We are on the second floor in the information and reference department, which is in the south building. You come to the desk and you just tell any staff member there, hey, I want to use the grants computers. They will sign you on to the computers reserved for research, and you'll be all set. Note that I am the only person trained on this database. So if it's not me that signs you on, that person will sign you on, and then they will probably run screaming. So I'm the only one that knows the ins and outs of the database. If we're open, you have access to the database. So our hours are online under About Us. Just look at those hours. That's when you have access to the database. I also want to stress that I am available for one-on-one appointments with you. In normal situations, I do one-on-one meetings in person. We can do 1-hour meetings, and just email me and we'll work something out. Another thing that people like to do is they email me, and even if they don't want a one-on-one meeting, they'll say, hey, you know what, I plan on coming to the library to use the database, and I just want to pick a day where you'll kind of be around if I do need help. You can email me, I'll let you know what my schedule is, and we can work something out that way. Moving forward, once you guys dig in and fight with the database a little bit, I would be happy to schedule a one-on-one Zoom session with you, and we can meet, while the library is closed. I still want to make sure I'm here to help you. So we could schedule a one-on-one Zoom session with that. The one thing that I ask you do before we schedule this session is spend some time fighting with the database on your own. This is not as easy as a Google search. If it were as easy as a Google search, it would not be as powerful. It would not be as powerful a resource as it is. So over the next few days, dig in there, get frustrated, play around with it. And that way, when we have our one-on-one session, we're not starting from ground zero and hopefully not starting back at the absolute beginning. If you dig into it on your own, you'll have more specific questions, and we will make much more efficient use of your time. But I really want to stress to you that we've been going on for about an hour at this point. There's no way you are going to be a pro after an hour of me yammering on and on. The first couple of hours that you use the database, you are not going to be a pro at this thing. It is going to take some time for you to get comfortable enough where your searches are quick and easy. And, I just want to be honest with you about that. So while I do think it's one of the easier to use databases of its power, there's going to be a learning curve. So don't think that you're doing anything wrong or that you just don't get it. It's not that. It just takes practice. And once you dig in and practice a little bit, I am here to help for you in any way that I can be.